Hello everybody, this is Cap of cODeAclysm, and I would like to welcome you to the 5th video in my beginner C++ tutorial series. So in this video we're going to talk about compound condition if statements, or some people just call them compound ifs, as well as switch statements. So as you can see, I already have my first project open, and I've declared two shorts, sorry guys, thing1 and thing2, and set them to the value of 10. So the syntax for the compound if statements are exactly the same as the if statements in the last video, because all we're doing is just adding another condition using a conditional operator. So there are three conditional operators. There's not, and or. And here I'm using the and conditional operator, which is signified by two ampersand signs. So what this means is that this condition has to be true and this condition has to be true in order for it to run this code. And to signify the OR conditional operator, you use two pipe symbols, which is right below the backspace key on your keyboard. And basically what this is saying is that this condition has to be true, or this condition can be true. As long as one of these conditions is true, then it will run this code. So if I Control S and Control F5, it's going to run it, of course, because thing1 is less than or equal to thing2, and thing1 is equal to thing2. So if I replace this with and then change this to not equal, Control S, Control F5, as you can see, it didn't run that code. It didn't execute that code because both of these conditions weren't true. This one was false. So the last conditional operator is not. So you signify not by using the exclamation point. So basically what not does is it flips the outcome. If it would be false, it flips it to true, and if it would be true, it flips it to false. So if we just type in false here, it's still going to run the code because it's using the not operator. So if it's not false, as you can see, not false, it's running because not false is true and not true is false. I mean, I know that might be a little bit confusing, but you get the hang of it after a while. And you can have multiple conditions in one if statement. Like you're not just limited to 2. You can have 3 or 4 or 5, but you kind of want to keep it down to a reasonable amount so that your code doesn't confuse you in the future or someone else who might be trying to read your code. And also something else I probably should have mentioned a while ago is comments. You can make comments by doing 2 forward slashes and saying, whatever you want to comment on. This is a comment. And the compiler completely ignores these and throws them out. These are just for you and anyone else reading your code. You can also make a multi-line comment by the forward slash and the star, and then ending it with star and forward slash, and you can have multiple lines of comments in between here. So moving on to the switch statement, we'll keep thing1 there. So the syntax for a switch statement is the switch keyword followed by parentheses, and then whatever value you're wanting to compare to other values, I guess you could say, goes in between these parentheses as its argument. So we're going to use thing1 here, And for every value you want to compare to thing 1, you have to put it in its own case statement. So we can say case 5 colon, not semicolon, and then if thing 1 were to be 5, it would execute anything that we put here below the case statement or after the colon. So we can say cout, it's 5. And then you put a break at the end. If you didn't put the break at the end, after it hit 5, it would then come down and execute, case 10, the next case statement, and the next, and however many were after that, until it hit a break. So you want to be sure to put a break in there, or else you're going to end up executing code you didn't want to execute. And I'll kind of show you guys an example of that here in a minute. So case 10, we want to print out it's 10. Oh, whoops. And then break. So you can kind of use this to substitute for if, else if, and else if you're not actually evaluating a condition. If you just want to find the equivalent of a value. Like in this case, we're looking for the value 10 because we're looking for the value of thing 1. So in place of the else statement, switch statements have default. So this code runs if all of the case statements fail. So if the value isn't any of the case statements, it will run the default code. So if we hit Control S and Control F5 to run this, you can see it's 10 because it checked 5, it wasn't 5, checked 10, it was 10, and executed this code. So if we change this to 5 and then take away this break statement, Control S, Control F5, as you can see, it ran both of those, which isn't what we wanted to happen. So you want to make sure to include those break statements at the end of each case. And you can do this with things other than numbers. You can do it with characters, strings, any of, pretty much any data type you want to. So just to test out the default, we'll put 0. So it's not going to be equal to 5, it's not going to be equal to 10, so it's going to run the default code. Control S, Control F5. As you can see, invalid entry. So switch statements are really useful for a lot of things, but in this tutorial here, I'm going to show you how to use it to make a menu for your console application. So let's just erase all those. Just that. Actually, let's just erase all of it. It'd be a little bit easier. So again, we want a short, and we're going to name it input this time, and we're going to set it equal to 0 just to initialize it, though we don't really have to. And we're going to have a little list of options here. We're going to have option 1. We'll say start browser. We're going to have option 2. Say, say add. Why not? And we're going to have option 3. Subtract. And then see out option 4. divide. Now let's keep with that theme. Let's change this to multiply, or just mult. It doesn't really matter that much. So then we're going to ask for their input using cin, and then whatever they enter, we're going to save in the input variable. So then we're going to use a switch statement to find out what their input was. So we're going to have case 1 in case they chose option 1. Going to do cout. Yeah, sure. You chose mult. Indel break. We're going to have case 2. Cout. You chose add. Indel break. Oops. We're going to have case 3. Cout. Chose subtract. Indel break. Case 4. Oops. Cout. You chose divide. Break. And our default, of course, we'll just say invalid entry. Okay. And you also don't need to use a break statement at the end of default, because of course there's no code under default within the switch statement that would be run unexpectedly. So let's just Control S and Control F5. As you can see, we have our menu here, and we can choose 1 for mult. You chose mult, and that kind of thing. Of course, we probably should also up here, just to make it look a little bit better, what do you want to do? There we go, that'll make it look a bit better. What we want to do, we want to add this time. You chose add. Control S, Control. Oh, whoops. Hit a wrong button there, guys. Control F5, and let's enter 5. Invalid entry. Okay, so it does what we want. So you can kind of use this as a template to make your own menus, and have a program that basically has a collection of functions like add, subtract, multiply, divide, or later on, if or when we get into network programming, we can have one for chat or one for moving files or things like that. And it kind of makes programming a little bit more fun when you can put your own menus in and all that kind of stuff. So just kind of play around with this, guys, and practice. That's how you learn, is to play around with the code and succeed and fail. And in the next tutorial, we're going to be covering loops, and that will be the final tutorial in our basic structures. So then we can really get into the fun stuff, like methods and strings and arrays and all that kind of stuff. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next tutorial.